Hello everyone, I'm going to be teaching you about this concept called adult children of alcoholics. That's the original name for it. It's a very limiting name for it. And the word alcoholic, we don't like to say that, that is that person's identity. They have an addiction is what we say instead. But the point is that there is this concept that was built, and that's the original title, around families that have addiction in them and what happens to the kids. What happens to the family dynamic, right? What roles do kids usually take on in families with addiction? And they've done a lot of studies on this and shown that these roles are typically what happens. And as far as, what I've seen in my practice, everyone that I've met with has at least one or two of these roles in their family, and sometimes they themselves have one or two of these roles. So I'm going to teach you about what the roles are today and why they happen. When somebody has an addiction in a family, or maybe more than one person has an addiction in a family, the drug of choice, and that doesn't even have to be a substance, it can be gambling, it can be shopping, it could be they work all the time, they're having an affair, anything that's kind of dysfunctional and takes their attention away from the family. Whatever that thing is, it takes the attention away from the family and in turn causes the family to have to pick up the slack for them, that person, instead of maybe dad coming home and helping raise the kids and cutting the lawn and doing all this stuff. Now the kids have to do that stuff to help out. And the roles, they based them off of a family with a mom, a dad, and then 4 children, which is not the norm, obviously. So a lot of times, let's say it's just a mom and 1 kid. These roles still apply, they still fit. But just know that as we're going through this. So whatever the drug of choice is takes that person away from the family, the kids have to pick up the slack. So the first person in the family is obviously the person with the addiction. That person is distracted, they're taken away from the family, and they need defense mechanisms to support their addiction. They need things to help them keep their addiction going, which means they need to have denial, they need to minimize their problems, saying they're not as bad as they are, and they need people to blame is the big thing. They need people to blame the stuff on. This is the kid's fault because the kid is doing this, or my kid is doing so well in school that I can't possibly have an addiction. A kid like that doesn't come from a family with addiction, right? They need excuses is the point, and you'll see through each of these roles how those roles become the person's excuses, right? And this whole thing is like when somebody with addiction is in the family, it throws off the family balance, it throws off the dynamics, so the kids and the other parent try to pick up the balance. And it's not that they think, it's not conscious, they don't think about it. They don't know that they're picking up the slack for the other person, they're just doing it naturally, subconsciously. And they don't know that they're hurting the person with the addiction and actually enabling that person to stay addicted. They don't know that stuff. We just do this because we love this person, we want to help out, we want to keep the family going, okay? The next person is usually the partner of the person with addiction, so this could be any gender. It's more typical for the women to do it though, because caretaking is in our nature, or we're supposed to do it, we're supposed to be caretakers. This person takes care of the person with the addiction though, and they take care of the household. So they will do anything to make sure that that person's okay with addiction, and that includes enabling. So if the person's an adult, they will often enable the person. They will call in to work for that person. They will make up excuses for them about why they're not doing stuff, which keeps the person using, but the caretaker doesn't think about it that way. They just think that they're helping. They think they're picking up the slack of this other person. So they'll do, of course, all of the chores, they'll mow the lawn, they'll pick up anything that the person addicted is not doing, right? If both parents are using, or there's only one person in the household that's an adult and that person happens to be using, then the kid, usually the oldest kid, takes on this role. And that usually means that they become the parent. Like and you might have seen this too, 8-year-olds doing the laundry for the whole family and cooking all the meals for the family and making sure that younger kids go to school. They are going to get their parent a beer from the fridge, right? They are taking care of things that adults should do, not kids do. And we call that parentification because they are having to become older than they really are. They're having to become the parent before it's their time. And that is a form of abuse, actually. That is neglect. It's not okay. The kid should not be taking on these extra responsibilities. But because of this person has to be super responsible, and they often have anxiety problems. They have a lot of pressure put on them, of course, and they have to grow up before their time if they're a kid. The next role, which is a kid role, is this thing called a hero. They're the family's hero. This family puts this kid on a pedestal. They put them up there and say, this kid is doing so well in life that we can't possibly have problems in our family. So this person is usually the oldest, but not always, and they are perfect. They excel in some way. They are really good at school. They're really good at sports. They're really good socially. They have some sort of a talent or something. And they're seen as this perfect thing to make, it's like the mask that the family wears, saying, Johnny's so good at sports, that family must be perfect. They're doing so well because he's doing so good at sports. But it's just a mask. It's just an excuse, right? So when this person grows up, they have a lot of pressure on them too to be perfect. And they often feel like they're not good enough because they were always pushed to do more and more and more. And it's not that the family is recognizing this person and they're so talented, they're so great for the kid's benefit. It's not for the kid's benefit. They don't actually see the kid and all of the kid's different parts of their personality. They only see that one thing about them. So they don't see this kid still. And this kid is still going to have a lot of problems when they grow up. Okay? Next, usually the second child, but not always, is a scapegoat. This kid is the complete opposite of the hero. They struggle in some area, has to be something that they struggle with, that they are considered bad in. They're the bad kid. They're the kid that gets in trouble at school. They're the kid that is getting in trouble with the law. They're using drugs at an early age. They have a lot of bad friends. So the family demonizes this person, and complete opposite of putting them on the pedestal, they use this person to blame all of their problems on. This is the kid, this is why our family has so many issues, this is why dad drinks, because Johnny is causing us so much stress. Johnny's not doing well in school, he's failing. It's just a way to blame, right? So this kid grows up having addictions themselves a lot of times, having issues in life because they didn't have someone supporting them to do their schoolwork. They just were expected to do poorly, so they don't do good in school. Maybe they drop out of school. Now they can't get as good of a job as their siblings. So they're looked at as not doing good enough as well, and also like always failing, always getting in trouble, I'm inadequate, right? I'm bad. They can think that I'm bad, and they struggle to shake this in their adulthood too, and they just kind of like give up and say, well, this is who I am, and I'm just going to be that person, and that's not fair either. The next child is usually the third, and this child's usually the third because by the time people have third children, they have no energy, especially if they have addiction in their family. So this kid is called the lost child. They are just, go to your room, I don't want to deal with you. The least trouble that this kid can cause, the better. And so they usually don't speak up, they usually don't cause any trouble, they just stick to themselves and are alone in their room most of the time. So they're isolated because of that, but also they're at high risk for abuse because no one's really watching them. They're just allowed to kind of do their own thing. This kid can be really creative though, and navigate life on their own, being very independent because of these things, but at the same time they are often have less friends when they get older. They have less ability to deal with like social situations, and they feel really dismissed because their needs haven't been met. They've just kind of been brushed to the side. Okay, lost child. The last child is the mascot. This tends to, again, to be the youngest because by the time we have the older siblings, the kid has to get attention in some kind of a way. So these roles are not only made to meet the needs of the family, but they're also made to get attention. The oldest kid gets the attention by doing well. The second to oldest kid gets attention by causing trouble. They can't compete with the oldest because they are not perfect like the oldest. So each new one is a way to get attention from the parents some way. So the mascot, by this time, fourth child, they are just going to be the clown. They're going to be the clown of the family. They're going to make a lot of jokes. They're going to always be sarcastic and making fun of things. They'll even make fun of the addiction, throwing light at the addiction to kind of lift the family's tension. So they do that. They lift the family's tension, but they also struggle with emotions because they're always supposed to be funny and laugh and have a good time. They're not supposed to feel sadness, or none of the kids are supposed to, but when I see these clients, they usually always try to make everything seem positive and better when things aren't always positive and better. And it's hard for them to tap into how they're really feeling because they're supposed to make everyone laugh and have a good time, right? So these are the roles. If you have been in a family with addiction, like growing up, find yourself in the roles. Find yourself, figure out who you are, because that is most likely your personality. We have one main role, but we usually take on more than one, especially if there's not 4 children, because we need to. We need to pick up the slack. All those roles need to happen in a family with addiction. Those are all things that help the family keep going, even when the addiction is happening, and unfortunately help the addiction keep going too. So figure out what role you are, figure out what you like about it, and then what you don't like about it, and you can change the stuff you don't like. Like if you are upset because you always feel like you have to make jokes and you're sick of it and everyone only wants you to be around because you're the funny guy and you can't really talk about how you're feeling, change it. Work in therapy with us to change it. We can help you change it. If you're the hero and you don't like all the pressure on yourself as you're older, change it. Let's fix it. There's also positives in each of those things. There's things that are good that come from them, but there's negatives too. If you are a parent that's in addiction, watch this in your kids. This stuff will hurt them potentially for life. And like I said, we can change these things, but if we don't have to, why do it? So if you have been in addiction, maybe you're in sobriety now or you're currently using, think about where your kids fit into this and get them therapy for themselves, right? It can help save them from feeling like they're not good enough for the rest of their lives, right? No one wants to feel that. Just be mindful of the things and know that addiction does cause things that might not seem like they're happening on the surface. It's not just money issues or I got in trouble with the law. There are things happening in the family. Even when someone tells me, no, addiction never hurt my kids, I was always there for them, I always met all their needs, I cooked and cleaned. Emotionally, this is happening, whether you think it is or not. This stuff is happening and it's real, and it can really, really hurt. So think about these things if you're deciding to stop using, okay? Good luck.